When Master Jake Harrison, a three-time state champion with an ego bigger than his trophy collection, saw 8-year-old Emma Chen walk into Dragon's Heart Dojo wearing bright pink boxing gloves, he thought he had found the perfect target to demonstrate why serious martial arts required serious equipment. What started as cruel mockery in front of dozens of students and parents quickly transformed into the most shocking upset in the dojo's 20-year history. Sometimes the most powerful lessons come wrapped in the most unexpected packages. And Jake was about to discover why you should never judge a fighter by the color of their gloves. In just 4 minutes, this quiet little girl would shatter his assumptions, humble his arrogance, and set records that would be talked about for generations. But first, let me ask you, where in the world are you watching from? Make sure to hit subscribe because tomorrow's episode will absolutely blow your mind. The afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of Dragon's Heart Dojo. It's casting long shadows across the polished wooden floors where students in crisp white uniforms practiced their forms with disciplined precision. The rhythmic sound of kicks hitting heavy bags mixed with the sharp commands of instructors, creating an atmosphere of focused intensity that had made this facility the most respected martial arts school in Riverside County. Dr. Lisa Chen pushed through the glass entrance doors, her hospital scrubs still bearing the faint scent of antiseptic from her morning shift in the emergency room. Behind her, 8-year-old Emma followed quietly, clutching a small gym bag decorated with cartoon characters and sporting a pair of bright pink boxing gloves that seemed to glow under the dojo's fluorescent lighting. Give me 10 minutes to speak with Sensei Williams about enrollment, Lisa whispered to her daughter, gently squeezing Emma's small shoulder. You can sit over there and watch the class. Emma nodded silently, her large dark eyes taking in the controlled chaos around them. Advanced students moved through complex kata sequences, while younger children practiced basic techniques under the watchful supervision of black belt instructors. The energy in the room was palpable, filled with the dedication and respect that had built the dojo's legendary reputation. Lisa guided Emma to a row of folding chairs positioned along the wall, away from the main training area. Stay here and observe, sweetheart. This might be a good place for you to learn confidence and self-defense. As Lisa walked toward the reception desk, Emma settled into her chair and opened her gym bag, pulling out a well-worn notebook where she had been sketching martial arts moves she had seen in movies and online videos. Her pink gloves sat prominently on her lap, a gift from her grandmother who had insisted that protective gear should be both functional and fun. Master Jake Harrison emerged from the advanced training room, his black belt with multiple gold stripes, announcing his senior rank to anyone who understood martial arts hierarchy. At 32, Jake had built his reputation on technical excellence and an uncompromising approach to traditional training methods. His students feared him as much as they respected him, and his approval was considered the highest honor in the dojo. Jake's steel gray eyes swept across the main training floor, automatically assessing form, technique, and effort levels among the students. He prided himself on maintaining the highest standards, and his classes were known throughout the region for producing champions who dominated local and regional competitions. Attention, class, Jake called out, his voice carrying easily across the large space. Today we're going to focus on precision and power. Want to see techniques that would make our ancestors proud? The students immediately formed neat rows, their movements crisp and coordinated. Jake walked among them, offering corrections and praise with the authority of someone who had dedicated his entire adult life to mastering and teaching martial arts. Emma watched the class with fascination, her notebook forgotten as she observed the fluid movements and controlled power displayed by students who ranged from her own age to adults in their 40s. She had been practicing martial arts forms in her bedroom for months, learning from instructional videos and books, but seeing real practitioners in action was entirely different. Near the front of the class, 12-year-old Kevin Park executed a perfect spinning kick that drew approving nods from his classmates. His wealthy parents, Dr. and Mrs. Park, watched proudly from the observation area, already planning his next tournament entry. Excellent technique, Kevin, Jake praised loudly. That's what dedicated training and proper equipment produce.
Yes.
Jake continued his instruction, His attention was drawn to a flash of bright pink in his peripheral vision. He turned to see Emma, sitting quietly in her chair, the vibrant boxing gloves creating a stark contrast against the traditional white and black aesthetic that dominated the dojo. A slow smile spread across Jake's face as an idea formed. He had been looking for a way to demonstrate the importance of proper martial arts equipment and traditional values to his students. The little girl with her cartoon gym bag and pink gloves represented everything he believed was wrong with modern attitudes toward martial arts training. "Class, gather around," Jake announced, his voice taking on the theatrical tone he used for his most memorable lessons. "Today we're going to learn about the difference between serious martial arts training and playing dress-up." The students formed a loose circle in the center of the mat area, their expressions ranging from curious to apprehensive. Several had noticed Emma's colorful equipment and sensed that Jake was building toward one of his infamous demonstrations. Jake's gaze fixed on Emma, who remained absorbed in her notebook, unaware that she had become the focal point of his attention. "You see, martial arts is about discipline, tradition, and respect. It requires proper equipment, serious commitment, and understanding that this is not a game." Dr. Angela Martinez, who had brought her 10-year-old son Carlos to class, shifted uncomfortably as she recognized the familiar pattern of Jake's behavior. She had witnessed similar demonstrations before and knew they rarely ended well for the target of his attention. "Real martial artists understand that every detail matters," Jake continued, beginning to pace around the circle of students. "The color of your uniform, the quality of your equipment, the seriousness of your approach, these things separate true practitioners from weekend warriors." Emma finally looked up from her notebook, sensing the shift in the room's energy. She found herself staring directly into Jake's cold gray eyes, and her heart began to race with the familiar anxiety she felt when adults looked at her with disapproval. "What's your name, little girl?" Jake called out, his voice carrying across the dojo with false friendliness. Emma glanced around, hoping he was addressing someone else, but all eyes had turned toward her. "Emma," she replied quietly, her voice barely audible above the dojo's ambient noise. "Emma," Jake repeated, savoring the moment. "Tell me, Emma, what brings you to a serious martial arts dojo today?" Emma's mouth went dry as she felt the stares of dozens of students and parents boring into her. Her natural shyness made her want to disappear into her chair, but something in Jake's tone reminded her of the bullies at school who picked on smaller kids. "My mom thought I might want to learn martial arts," Emma whispered. Jake's smile widened with predatory satisfaction. "How interesting. Tell me, Emma, what experience do you have with martial arts?" "I practice at home," Emma replied, her voice growing slightly stronger. "I watch videos and read books about different techniques." Several students exchanged amused glances at the idea of learning martial arts from books and videos. Jake seized on their reaction, using it to build toward his planned demonstration. "Books and videos," Jake repeated with exaggerated amazement. "How fascinating. And what about equipment? I see you brought some gear with you." Read as she realized her pink gloves had drawn unwanted attention. "My grandmother gave them to me for my birthday." "Your grandmother," Jake said, turning back to his students with theatrical disbelief. "Class, Emma here thinks she can learn martial arts from books and videos. Using pink boxing gloves her grandmother bought her. What do you think about that?" The question hung in the air like a challenge, forcing the students to choose between supporting their instructor's mockery or defending a child who had done nothing wrong. Most remained silent, though a few exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Now, Emma," Jake continued, his voice dripping with condescension, "would you like to show my students what you've learned from all those books and videos?" Lisa Chen finished her conversation with Sensei Williams about enrollment procedures and turned to check on Emma. What she saw made her blood run cold. Her daughter sat frozen in her chair while Jake Cooper addressed the entire class about her, his tone dripping with mockery and disdain. "Emma, come here, sweetheart," Lisa called out, her maternal instinct screaming warnings about the volatile situation developing before her eyes. But Jake had already committed to his demonstration.
Actually, Dr. Chen, I think Emma would benefit
from a practical lesson about real martial arts training. With your permission, of course. The calculated manipulation in his request was transparent to any adult paying attention. But the social dynamics of the situation made refusal complicated. Parents worried about causing scenes, students feared retribution, and staff members navigated professional relationships. I don't think that's appropriate, Lisa said firmly, stepping toward her daughter. Emma is just here to observe today. Nonsense, Jake replied smoothly. The best way to learn is through hands-on experience. Emma volunteered to show us what she's learned. Didn't you, Emma? The manipulation was obvious to everyone present, but Emma surprised everyone by standing up from her chair. There was something in her posture, something in the way she held her head that made several observers pay closer attention. Okay, Emma said quietly, her voice carrying just far enough for Jake to hear. I'll show you what I know. Jake's grin became predatory as he gestured toward the center mat. Excellent. It's going to be very educational indeed. As Emma walked toward the training area, her small frame seemed impossibly delicate next to Jake's imposing presence. But there was something in her movement, something in her breathing that caught the attention of Sensei Williams, who had been watching the interaction with growing concern. Master Robert Williams, the dojo's 60-year-old founder, had studied martial arts for over 4 decades and possessed the kind of intuitive understanding that came only from a lifetime of dedicated to practice. What he observed in Emma's approach set off alarm bells in his experienced mind. Emma stepped onto the center mat, wearing her regular clothes and bright pink gloves, creating a striking contrast against the traditional setting. The assembled students and parents formed a loose circle around them, their expressions mixing curiosity with apprehension. Now, Emma, Jake announced, his voice echoing off the dojo's high ceiling. Show everyone what you've learned from all those books and videos. Let's see some of that backyard martial arts training. Emma remained perfectly still, her breathing steady and controlled in a way that seemed unusual for a nervous child. She studied Jake's posture with the same focused attention she had given her notebook moments earlier, as if she were reading something invisible to everyone else. Come on, don't be shy, Jake taunted, beginning to move in a slow circle around her. Show us a technique. Throw a punch. Attempt a kick. Demonstrate something you learned from your grandmother's gift. The gymnasium fell into an uncomfortable silence as spectators waited for the inevitable humiliation to begin. Kevin Park watched from the front row with eager anticipation, certain that his instructor was about to deliver another memorable lesson in superiority. Dr. Martinez felt her protective instincts surge as she watched the psychological intimidation unfold. She had seen this exact dynamic play out in hospital settings, when certain doctors were challenged, and she knew how dangerous wounded pride could become. I'm waiting, Jake continued, his patience beginning to fray as Emma's stillness disrupted his planned narrative. Don't tell me you're going to just stand there like a statue wearing those ridiculous pink gloves. Sensei Williams stepped closer to the action, his decades of experience telling him that something fundamental was about to shift in the dojo's carefully controlled environment. The old master's eyes never left Emma's small figure, noting details that others missed. You know what I think? Jake's voice grew louder, more aggressive as Emma's continued silence frustrated his attempts at domination. I think you've been filling your head with fantasies from those videos. I think you actually believe you could handle yourself against real martial artists. He stepped closer to Emma, invading her personal space in a calculated act of intimidation. Well, here's your chance to prove it. Show everyone that all that practice in your bedroom has taught you something useful. Emma looked directly into Jake's eyes without flinching. And when she spoke, her voice carried a quiet confidence that made every adult in the room suddenly pay very close attention. Mr. Harrison, she said softly, before we begin, I want you to know that my pink gloves are special. Jake's eyebrows shot up in genuine surprise at the unexpected response. Special? How exactly are pink cartoon gloves special? Emma's expression grew thoughtful, as if she were considering how to explain something complex to someone who might not understand. They belonged to my grandmother when she was young. She was the first woman to earn a black belt in 3 different martial arts styles in our country. The revelation struck the assembled crowd like lightning, transforming Jake's mockery into something that suddenly felt very dangerous. Several adults in the crowd began murmuring as they processed the implications of what Emma had just revealed.
Oh.
"Your grandmother was a martial artist?" Jake asked, though his voice carried less conviction than before. "She still is," Emma replied. "Matter-of-factly, she's 78 years old and still teaches classes twice a week. She gave me these gloves because she said the color doesn't matter as much as the heart of the person wearing them." Sensei Williams felt recognition dawning in his experienced mind as pieces of a puzzle suddenly clicked into place. His weathered hands gripped the edge of a nearby equipment rack as memories of legendary figures from martial arts history began surfacing. "What's your grandmother's name?" Williams asked quietly, stepping closer to the center of the action. Emma turned to Ward, the dojo's founder, with respectful attention. "Her name is Master Lin Chen. She said you might remember her from the old tournaments." The name hit Sensei Williams like a physical blow, confirming suspicions that had been building in his mind. Several other adults in the crowd began recognizing the legendary figure Emma had just claimed as family. "Master Lin Chen," Williams repeated, his voice filled with something approaching awe. "The Dragon Lady of the 1960s Championships, three-time international champion and pioneer of women's competitive martial arts." Emma nodded simply. "She taught me everything she taught my mother, and everything her master taught her in the old country. She said I have natural ability, but, more importantly, I have the spirit of a true warrior." Jake's face cycled through emotions too rapidly to track disbelief, embarrassment, anger, and something that might have been fear. The arrogant instructor who had dominated this space for years suddenly looked very uncertain about the situation he had created. "Now," Emma said quietly, her small hands adjusting her pink gloves with ritualistic precision, "would you like me to show you what my grandmother's traditions really look like?" The question hung in the air like a challenge that would determine not just the outcome of their confrontation, but the future of everyone who witnessed what was about to unfold. The silence in Dragon's Heart Dojo stretched like a taut wire as Emma Chen stood in the center of the mat, her bright pink gloves catching the afternoon light streaming through the windows. Master Jake Harrison's confident smirk had vanished, replaced by uncertainty as the weight of Emma's lineage settled over the assembled crowd like morning fog. Sensei Williams stepped forward, his weathered face reflecting decades of martial arts wisdom. "Emma, if you truly are Master Lin Chen's granddaughter, then you carry a legacy that demands respect from everyone in this room."
Nice.
Jake's jaw tightened as he felt control of the situation slipping away. Legacy or not, she's still just an 8-year-old girl with fancy gloves. Bloodlines don't automatically create skill. Emma turned to face Jake directly, her dark eyes holding a depth that seemed far beyond her years. "You're right, Mr. Harrison. Bloodlines don't create skill, but they can carry knowledge, and knowledge combined with practice creates something special without warning." Emma dropped into a fighting stance so fluid and precise that several black belts in the crowd audibly gasped. Her small frame transformed from that of a shy child into something that resembled a coiled spring, ready to unleash devastating power despite her diminutive size. "Impossible," whispered Kevin Park's father, Dr. Park, who had trained in Taekwondo. "During his college years, that's a master-level stance. It takes years to develop that kind of balance and precision." Jake circled Emma slowly, his own stance betraying the nervous energy of someone who suddenly realized he might be facing a genuine challenge. "Fancy footwork doesn't prove anything. Let's see if you can actually apply those techniques." Emma remained perfectly still, tracking Jake's movement with predatory focus. "What would you like me to demonstrate, Mr. Harrison? Speed, power, precision, or perhaps all three?" The quiet confidence in her voice sent shivers through the watching crowd. Dr. Martinez pulled out her phone, sensing that whatever was about to happen would be worth documenting for posterity. "Speed," Jake declared, attempting to regain psychological advantage. "Show me how fast those little hands can move with those ridiculous pink gloves." Emma smiled for the first time since entering the dojo. "Are you sure? My grandmother always warned that speed without control can be dangerous." "I'm a third-degree black belt," Jake snapped. "I think I can handle whatever an 8-year-old can dish." Out. What happened next would be replayed in slow motion in the minds of everyone present for years to come. Emma's hands began moving in a pattern, so rapid that they became pink blurs against the dojo's white walls. She executed a traditional speed form that had been passed down through her grandmother's lineage for generations. Her movements flowing like water while generating power that seemed to defy physics. The sound of her gloves cutting through the air created a rhythmic whooshing that built to a crescendo before she suddenly stopped, returning to perfect stillness. The entire demonstration had lasted exactly 30 seconds, but in that time, she had executed over 200 precise hand techniques. The assembled crowd erupted in amazed murmurs. Several advanced students attempted to count the techniques they had witnessed, but Emma's speed had exceeded their ability to track individual movements. "Sweet mercy," breathed Arthur Thompson, a 70-year-old former boxer who served as the dojo's equipment manager. "In 50 years of combat sports, I've never seen hand speed like that." Sensei Williams pulled out an old stopwatch he kept for timing advanced forms. "Emma, would you mind repeating that sequence? I'd like to get an official time." Emma nodded respectfully. "Of course, Sensei Williams." This time, Williams tracked her movements while calling out intervals. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. ... 150. 30 seconds. ... Williams stared at his stopwatch in disbelief before announcing the results to the stunned crowd. 212 individual techniques in 30 seconds. That's a new dojo record by over 60 techniques. Jake's face had gone pale as the implications sank in. That's impossible. Nobody moves that fast with that kind of precision. "Power next," Emma said simply, as if breaking speed records was just a warm-up exercise. "But I'll need something to demonstrate on." Arthur Thompson wheeled out a breaking board station, setting up 3 1-inch pine boards in the standard. "Testing configuration. These are regulation tournament boards," he announced. "Most adults need significant momentum to break even one." Emma approached the breaking station with the same calm focus she had displayed throughout the demonstration. She studied the boards for a moment, then looked back at Jake. "How many would you like me to break?" Jake's competitive instincts warred with growing unease. "All 3 if you can." Emma positioned herself in front of the boards, drawing back, her right hand while maintaining perfect form. The pink gloves seemed to glow under the dojo's lights as she prepared for the strike. "Wait," called Dr. Martinez, her medical training kicking in. "Are you sure this is safe? Those boards could seriously injure." Emma's hand shot forward with explosive power, striking the center board with a sharp crack that echoed throughout the dojo. All 3 boards exploded into splinters, force of her strike sending fragments flying in every direction. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma stood calmly amid the scattered wood pieces, her pink gloves unmarked and her breathing unchanged. "New record," Arthur announced shakily. "Youngest student to break 3 boards? Previous record holder was a 16-year-old brown belt." Kevin Park stared at the destruction with his mouth hanging open. "She's stronger than my dad, and he's been training for 20 years. "Precision," she announced, moving toward a different training station where paper targets had been set up for advanced accuracy drills. Emma, Sensei Williams said carefully, "Precision training usually requires years of—" "I understand," Emma interrupted gently. "My grandmother started teaching me precision when I was 4. She said accuracy matters more than power." The precision station consisted of 12 small targets arranged at varying heights and distances. Advanced students typically achieved 60% accuracy after months of training. Emma studied the targets for exactly 10 seconds, then began a demonstration that left everyone speechless. Moving in perfect rhythm, she struck each target dead center with different techniques: straight punches, hook punches, uppercuts, and palm strikes. Every movement was executed with mechanical precision, and every target was hit exactly in its center. 12 for 12, Williams announced, his voice heavy with amazement. "Perfect accuracy. That's never been achieved by anyone under black belt rank." Jake Harrison stood frozen as his entire worldview crumbled around him. About age, experience, and traditional training methods lay in ruins at his feet. "I don't understand," Jake said aloud, his voice cracking with confusion. "How is this possible?" Emma turned toward him with an expression of genuine sympathy. Mr. Harrison, my grandmother taught me that martial arts isn't about proving you're better than others. It's about becoming the best version of yourself while helping others do the same. She gestured toward the crowd of students who had watched their instructor's authority evaporate. All these children look up to you. They trust you to guide them and help them grow. But instead, you use your position to make them feel small. The simple observation hit Jake like a physical blow, forcing him to confront years of ego-driven behavior that had damaged countless young students. That's why I wanted to show you these techniques, Emma continued, her voice remaining gentle despite the weight of her words. Not to embarrass you, but to help you remember what martial arts is really about. Dr. Martinez stepped forward, her voice filled with emotion. Emma, what you've accomplished today is extraordinary. But how did you develop such incredible skill? At such a young age? Emma smiled, thinking of her grandmother's patient instruction over the years. Every day after school, I train with my grandmother for 2 hours. She teaches me forms that have been passed down through 7 generations of our family. But more importantly, she teaches me about respect, humility, and using strength to protect others. Sensei Williams approached Emma with the reverence due to a visiting master. Emma, would you be willing to teach some of these techniques to our advanced students? Your family's knowledge could benefit our entire community. Before Emma could answer, Jake stepped forward. His usual arrogance had been replaced by something approaching humility. Emma, I owe you an apology. And I owe apologies to every student I've treated poorly over the years. He turned to address the assembled crowd, his voice carrying genuine remorse. I became so focused on winning and maintaining my reputation that I forgot the true purpose of martial arts. Watching an 8-year-old demonstrate more wisdom and skill than I've shown in years has been ... humbling. Emma extended her small hand toward Jake, the gesture of reconciliation bringing tears to several observers' eyes. Everyone deserves a chance to grow and change, Mr. Harrison. Maybe we could train together sometime. My grandmother always says the best way to learn is by teaching others. As Jake accepted Emma's hand, the transformation in the dojo's atmosphere was immediate and profound. Students who had cowered under harsh instruction suddenly saw possibilities for growth based on encouragement rather than fear. 3 months later, Dragon's Heart Dojo had become the most sought-after martial arts school in the region. Emma visited twice a week, sharing her family's ancient techniques while Jake worked to rebuild relationships with students he had previously intimidated. The pink gloves that had once been objects of mockery now hung in a place of honor near the dojo's entrance, accompanied by a plaque that read, "True strength comes not from the color of your equipment, but from the courage of your heart." Master Lin Chen, through her granddaughter Emma. Emma's demonstration had shattered 3 official dojo records in a single afternoon. But her greatest achievement was proving that wisdom, skill, and character could emerge from the most unexpected sources. The little girl with pink gloves had reminded an entire community that authentic martial arts mastery begins with humility and flourishes through service to others. Years later, when Emma eventually earned her own black belt at age 12, the youngest in the school's history, she chose to receive it while wearing the same pink gloves that had started her journey. Because sometimes the most powerful statements are made not by conforming to expectations, but by staying true to who you are, while exceeding every limit others try to place on your potential. The records she broke that day still stand.
But her
Real legacy lies in the dozens of students who learned that martial arts is about building character, not breaking spirits. And in a renovated corner of the dojo, Master Lin Chen herself now teaches traditional forms twice a week, her 78-year-old. Hands still moving with the grace and power that her granddaughter had inherited, along with those special pink gloves. The end.
Hit subscribe and keep watching. More stories waiting for you. Tap the video on screen. Just click and enjoy.